Hello, everybody. This is Peter Palmiotti of Human Art Studios, and this is Making Comics and Art, episode 118. And before we start the show, I want to mention, let's see, I'm going to be on Dori show. She was just here the other day, and we'll be going live on her channel 11 a.m. She'll be painting. I'll be working on retro or something. And she'll be doing a whole interview with me, spotlight kind of thing. And then Sunday, 3 p.m., there's Dori Jones. I'll be with Eric Faries, who's been on my channel. It's been a long time. But I'm going to go on his channel. He's working on a comic, and I'll be working on my comic, and we'll be talking about all comic-related stuff. And then I'll probably do a stream myself on Monday. I got some developments I won't get into now, but you can check back with me next week. And I got so many guests coming up, and it's always a good time. But today we have Mr. Tom Rasch. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me. I've realized it's been a spell since we've done this.
Yeah. Man, oh man. For those that don't know you or your work, I mean, feels like I've been following your career forever, and definitely your adventures with your book that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm so excited that you finally got it together and you're kickstarting it, and it's just a gorgeous product, and I want to show it to all my friends that are watching live and watching later and all that jazz. So yeah, just tell us all about it.
Well, I guess for your viewers, I guess I can do the quick and short and sweet version of a little bit of who I am, and then I guess a little more about Black Alpha, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for people who aren't familiar with who I am, I drew for Marvel Comics kind of when, the industry was really thriving. Image had just blown up, and I got my foot in the door working on Punisher 2099, and I drew that for a brief bit before the market imploded. And anyone who's familiar about comic book history sort of knows what that was like, and maybe some aren't familiar with why that happened. But yeah, I won't get into the minutiae of that right here. But I will say that that's kind of where things were at. And then sometime after that, I migrated over to doing concept art for video games and film projects. I had friends who were doing comics, and they said, "Come over to video games. The money's better. It's salary, benefits, etc." And did that for quite some time. And then as Facebook was taking off, people who were discovering me and my work had brought up, "Have you ever considered wanting to try and draw for Marvel again?" And the more I thought about it, I'm like, if I'm going to put that time in, because it's such a labor-intensive process to do sequential art and do comics, I think I'll put the time into my own characters and my own creator and stuff. And that's kind of what's brought us to where we're at currently. Black Alpha I've had out in the public eye for probably several, maybe 7-8 years, somewhere roughly around there, maybe a little bit longer. But and the quick elevator pitch is, what if you took the Batman story, you sprinkled in Iron Man tech and dropped it off in the middle of Star Wars? And I was exposed to superheroes and science fiction at around 4 or 5 years old. My dad, Bob, was stationed in Guam. And that's when I was immediately hooked into this fantastic world of these TV shows. I never looked back. It was love at first sight. And that pretty much was a big milestone in sort of forging a path for me, not just as a fan, but a direction with what I wanted to do for my life. And then my mom, Maggie, she's a wonderful artist. I would take her drawings and I would start copying them. And that's kind of when I picked up the passion for doodling and picking up pencils and drawing and being creative. And then a number of years later, excuse me, after discovering that there were characters that were amazing and that there were people behind comic books who created this material, between that and Star Wars premiering in the theater for the first time, I felt like both of those moments really inspired me, that I felt like I knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, which was the passion for storytelling. And it was either going to be movies or comics. And I was like, well, from what I've heard about the movie business, it can be pretty cutthroat and pretty rough. Probably not terms I use as a fifth grader, but I think I grasped the concept, and I decided that comics would probably be another way to go for storytelling. And um, everything that I've thought of since I was a kid, I think has been very much, like I said, come to this moment where I'm at currently because, um, I've also, besides comics and movies and TV shows, I also grew up loving all the stuff that went with comics, the toys and the T-shirts and all the merchandise. And so I've done that with Black Alpha through the years. I've created a few merchandise concepts, try to do some of the ancillary material stuff to sort of emulate what I've loved since I was growing up. And then in that time, I've had interest from Hollywood with it. A few different times it was optioned for TV movie development. And I actually completed issue 1 some time ago. And I've had stuff from Black Alpha seen on episodes of The Big Bang Theory, and it was actually published in USA Today in an article that they did with me. But real life kind of tends to sort of get in the way. And like some of us, especially in the comic world, can relate to, you have a number of roadblocks. And so the production of Black Alpha moving farther along was sort of stalled up to this point. And I'll be the first to admit I was definitely sort of kind of seduced by the dark side of Hollywood. And with this TV movie show, animated feature development cycle that I was going through, I probably spent a little too much time worrying about that when it looked like things were going to come together. And I will say this, that nothing has thus far. And there were a few lessons to be learned along the way. And so about a year ago, I partnered up with Jack Egan and the fine folks at WTF Comic, and we had discussed about them building a Kickstarter for Black Alpha, because it was something that had been mentioned to me, doing Kickstarters, and I was fearful of it. And a few other issues, I never got around to doing it. So these guys definitely helped take care of the heavy lifting. I mean, they built the current Kickstarter that's live, and it sort of showed me that sometimes, it's okay to accept help. I can't always do everything by myself. So anyway, that's why the Kickstarter is finally rolling. So hopefully that wasn't too long, Peter.
No, that was great. That was great. So if you want to show people the Kickstarter page and go through all the tiers that are available, by all means, we can set that up for people to check out, see the artwork, see the characters.
Now, you mentioned about the share button here at the bottom. Is that something that I do and I have to type in the link for the Kickstarter, or?
I believe yeah, I think so. It's been a while since I did it myself.
Yeah, I don't. Well, real quick, because usually, so I'm actually having to use another computer right now because my other computer has been having issues with the mic, and the computer that I'm on currently, I don't know if I can do like a copy and paste setup to like pull up the actual site. So,
well, if you go to Kickstarter and then just type in your name or the book title, should come up pretty easily.
Yeah, I'll look. Well, I think I actually just found the link right here in the history. So
that works too.
Yeah, so I'm on the page here.
Okay, it will come up on my end in a second, probably. Like I mentioned, I have guests do it because my computer is internet and computer
Challenged at times.
Is very challenging at times. I'm surprised it's not showing up yet.
I'm trying to think. While we're both kind of dealing with technology challenge moments.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out if I just type in, the actual information for the page itself, and then maybe even chat or type it down into like the chat section of your show, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it will show up on YouTube. I actually put it. Okay, so there's a private chat. If you look to the right of the screen, there's a private chat. Put the link into there, and then I could share it to the chat. Because I believe if you share it to the chat, it will block it or wait for me to give permission.
Okay. So once again, with the computer that I'm on currently, the finger pad here has just the one section, whereas mine has the two where you do, like, you click on one and it hits copy as or whatever.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out with this one how to do that actually at the moment. So
you might need to do 2-finger deal, I think, maybe.
Or would I also? I wonder if I click on it, if it hits like Control Copy, or is it Control C? Maybe.
Maybe.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
don't seem to do it.
I'm so used to my wireless mouse. Um, it's funny because I'm left-handed, but I use my right hand to work my mouse,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people have told me that's very odd, but I get more done that way.
Well, let's see. I hit Control C. I'm trying to remember if that's the hotkey button command for that. I can try it out and see if I can try and put in the stream here on the side and see if that worked.
Let's see.
Control
Yes, it's
B.
called Black Alpha Dory.
Okay.
Uh,
I just dropped it
okay.
in. I dropped it in the chat section there on the side.
All right. Here we go. Boop, boop, boop. And
And for everybody out there watching, I'm sure they appreciate the slice of life moments.
I actually I keep forgetting. I put links. I set up the streams sometimes long before we go live, and I got the Kickstarter link below the video in the
Okay.
in the video description. But here it is for people to click on and check out. I mean, here, let me see. I'm gonna try to do it myself and see if I have any luck. Sometimes I get lucky. Let's see. Yeah, well, I want to do that. And let's do this. Oh, okay, I know what I gotta do. Go
Okay.
here. If it completely bombs my stream, then I'll cut it out. But
Okay.
all right, so it's loading up. My all right.
Anyway, while you're doing that, I was
Loading,
thinking about
loading.
when
Yeah,
I had a
yeah. Go ahead.
podcast with you before. I don't know if you did, if it was the video version. I think it was just like the audio podcast. I remember being on your show.
Yeah, I did Independent Road years ago, and I did like 100 episodes over 4 year period, and that was a lot of fun. That was before the YouTube.
Yeah. But it's been fun watching your show build some traction here over the last few years.
All right.
This version of it. So.
Okay, so it looks like it load. Let's see. Okay. So
It's thinking.
it says
It's
sharing.
thinking.
So do you see it on screen?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, you can just describe what's on the screen to people, and I'll scroll as we go.
Yeah. Once again, so Black Alpha, like I said, pitch it as Batman in space or Batman and Iron Man Star Wars. The one thing that I think a few people have noticed is the particular style that I've chosen to do the comic in, which is more of a Batman the Animated Series, Ben 10, Young Justice style. There are a couple of reasons for this choice. Was at the time I thought if I did an animated style that perhaps the production pipeline would go along a little quicker than doing traditional comic book rendering. that has sort of at times proven to not entirely be true. And also, it was honestly with an idea because when I decided to focus on getting this modern version of the character out there, I very much had an eye towards multi-platform experience. So, I did think of it in lines of like a cartoon or an animated film or something. And so it was supposed to be proof of concept, and I had some action figures made, and I sort of wanted to see how they would look as toys. And and so this is the initial style that we have for the book. But I've incorporated so many elements of things that I've loved my whole life. Like I mentioned before, I was initially introduced to science fiction space stuff or space opera with Star Trek. That had a huge impact. To this day, it's still a huge part of my life. And then the idea of the superhero, was something I was immediately intrigued with. So everything that I've loved as a kid, cool spaceships. The hero has adventures where he faces larger than life villains with interesting designs. And his superhero myth journey is kind of transported to like more of a cosmic setting. But I tell people repeatedly, I wear my influences on my sleeve. A lot of things I do when it comes to my creator-owned, my original work has honestly been a love letter to whatever it is that I'm really interested in. And Black Alpha is the first version of this.
Yeah, it's beautiful work. And so you're at just above 6,000. You got 141 backers. You got 5 days to go.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go scroll down now. So this is a little summary there. Retro comic. What the? my comic is called Retro. If you didn't know.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah. So you beat me to the punch.
Yeah. So yeah, this is where you had poster in the background. It's very cool on Big Bang. And then your little action figure on the shelf back there.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. That's just I love the costume designs of your characters, and how each one is really unique. Yeah.
Well, I've been doing some other podcasts recently, and I know one of the things that I'd mentioned, and at least one or two of them, was that I personally feel, as a fan of science fiction storytelling in general, that there's been a few new science fiction movies that have come out. And John Carter being a perfect example, new to the audience, not new to the people that realized the material came over about 100 years ago. And I very much enjoyed that movie. That movie. I'm not one of the haters, but the one thing I always think of when it comes to new science fiction is that they sort of they're allowed to exist within their own world and the space that they've created. But I feel like what's been missing through the years is there's not been like a new Boba Fett or a new Darth Vader, an iconic bad guy. But I also want all my characters, with obviously the love and the beauty of comics is that it is such a visual medium, to always make sure that the designs reflect that. I try and keep them simple, but hopefully bold and powerful enough that they're instantly memorable, to the audience.
Right. Yeah, it definitely showcases that talent.
Well, thank you once again.
Here we got some fighting going on.
Well, if anyone, I think, sort of has to kind of, boil down the bare essence of their story they're trying to tell, and, master the elevator pitch, kind of what I tried to do earlier. But I would say, on top of Star Trek and Star Wars and Batman and Spider-Man and Iron Man, there's even a little more deeper resonance as far as inspirations go. I was a huge Bruce Lee fan growing up. So, the lead character in this story, Trandon Antares, as the new Black Alpha, has to train to, he has an augmenting suit, which reflects the qualities of the pilot, as I call them. And so these characters, these guardsmen that actually he'd wanted to be since he was a young boy, their abilities have to be at the top of their game. I kind of equate them to like the Shaolin monks meets the Marines. And
right.
So there's kind of their version of space foo, or, space martial arts, and also just honing your entire persona, your physiology, your mental state, your interior, your chi, your spiritual part. Very much is kind of modeled after sort of what Bruce Lee represented to pop culture in general. So there's a little bit of that. The fact that his ship, which is I describe as the Batcave and the Batmobile combined, running around in space. It's his hot ride and base of operations. The Aramis comes from one of the name of the Three Musketeers. And I've loved that story too since I was a kid. And the idea of like kind of an honor guard that serves a monarch or a king, that's what these guardsmen would be in this story. So there's a little nod out to the Three Musketeers. And that's why I've said, like in the Kickstarter video, when people get a chance to check it out, it's everything that I've loved as a kid and kind of all mixed up in a creative stew with what I call my fresh coat of paint, which is it's kind of familiar and fun, but hopefully brand new to sort of get people excited. Because I like to create material that that is not so bold and weird and different that the audience will shy away from it just from being perhaps unsettled or whatever. And I personally feel when it comes to things like Star Trek and Star Wars that have had such an impact on pop culture, the audience may not realize it, and maybe the even creative team doesn't fully realize it, that we embrace those kind of science fiction stories, even though, yes, I know technically Star Wars is a space fantasy, because there's things in there that are familiar. There's motifs of the samurai epic and the Western and the World War II movies for Star Wars. And then Star Trek, it's also a Western in space, and there's a bit of the Imperial Navy aspect of it, and the audience, I think, could attach to that. So when I create my own stories, that's what I sort of try and I guess go for my goal. By the way, I know one of the things you just kind of scroll past, I forgot to mention this. We had an exciting announcement recently right there that John Rossetti, who has been an artist on the Venture Brothers for Cartoon Network, has joined us and is going to be part of the creative team. And him and I will be collaborating on doing the artwork. And that's exciting for me because that's one of the things that's sort of been tough when I've been trying to do this on my own. And I have a family. I'm a new father. My daughter just turned 3. I have a full-time day job. As minimum, I work 12 hours a day, sometimes longer. Your window of time to create comics becomes smaller and smaller. And so that's another reason why I said I kind of finally sort of gave in and realized that, when the guys at WTF offered to sort of help kind of do some of the heavy lifting, I took them up on it because that's honestly what I've needed this whole time. It's just that the components didn't line up correctly until like this last year for that stuff.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of people out there know the Venture Brothers. So that's excellent.
Well, and it's still with his work, keeping with that animated vibe of the aesthetic we've currently established with the book. We had started talking to John some time back, and I got to see some samples of how he handles Black Alpha himself, and he definitely had like the vibe and the proportions and just that fun animated energy right down to T. And so I was very excited, when he reached out to us, and so we've just kind of been just working on, getting all the semantics together to allow this to move forward. But and we're trying to build upon the pedigree of him doing Cartoon Network, me working for Marvel, to sort of kind of throw that out there that, for an audience, that we definitely want this to be a quality product that the big companies put out.
Right. Yeah. Quality is always important. And I love these character designs and the ship. It's so cool.
Well, when I think about this, and I was reminded of it again recently that, I grew up playing with the Mego action figures of the DC and Marvel superheroes, as well as Star Trek, and I had Planet of the Apes, and I've been into action figures, or dolls as they were once called. Let's be honest. I had no problem calling them a doll when I was, first grade. I would take them out in my backyard and I would have adventures with them. And I think that was another probably precursor to the idea of like formulating stories around all these different, amazing characters. And so me doing the development for Black Alpha, I approached it like a TV show or movie. I decided to do a ton of concept stuff and like this model sheet of the character and the ship is there. That it's still kind of the adult version of me playing with an action figure and building a story around him. And I was that kid that when I got an action figure, I love the fact that you could get them in their secret identity garb, or a suit or a business suit, say for Bruce Wayne, or being able to take off his cowl to sort of see the dichotomy of the secret identity with the costumed version of that persona. But yeah, I mean, and I think it's important. A lot of people who don't know this, I mean, anything that we see in the public eye, comics and video games and movies and TV shows, definitely takes a certain amount of time and to develop the material, and that includes coming up with the designs for the world, the characters, the props that they use, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Now, one of the things I mentioned a little bit earlier is that Trandon appropriates what is called a cell suit. CEL is an acronym for Cyber Enhanced Link, and a ship that belonged to a fallen guardsman. And the science
Jesus.
behind this is the cell suit. Yeah, the cell suit, besides being an augmenting suit, it sort of becomes, it's a biomechanical, kind of my take on the biomech super suit, becomes bonded with the pilot for life, and it won't work for anyone else, and it won't, you can't really put it on until that pilot's deceased. That's what happened to this older guardsman, and he sort of becomes our Obi-Wan Kenobi in kind of a holographic mentoring program. That's him right there
Right. Yeah.
next to Otto, and Trandon, as a young boy wanting to be a guardsman himself, between being 5 years old and up until his mid-teens, a lot of changes happen politically, and these factions of guardsmen, each one represents like a star system, and there's 12 of them. They've been slowly dying out by this mysterious threat, and Trandon is one of in the outlying systems, and that one tends to be more like third world country or poverty based, and he feels let down, excuse me, by the guardsmen that protected his system. And so his life changed dramatically from being an innocent young boy that wanted to grow up to be these particular kind of characters, and then feeling let down by them. And the story that I want to explore within the mythology of the superhero is that, like Bruce Wayne, his family is taken from him. He becomes an orphan, like a lot of superheroes. But I want it to be a sort of a different take on that arc. Like in his particular universe, the guardsmen, as they're called, they're the closest thing they have to superheroes where they're from, because they have these superpowers given to them by an augmenting suit. And the reason that program was created was because if we lived in another, system or galaxy where like super powered aliens are just a constant, how are we going to hold our own? So they basically created the Guardsman program to level the playing field, and they serve what I call the magistrate, which is kind of the king or monarch in my story. And like I said, like the Musketeers, they're sort of considered a very honorable guard that serves the king. But things have changed, and whatever guardsmen factions have been left because of this mysterious threat wiping them out, the majority of them have been told to serve the more wealthier core systems. So, like I said, while Trandon's, going through this, he goes from being, someone who's inspired to actually being quite cynical of a hero. And long story short is he will get to become the hero he envisioned since he was a young child, but just not in the way that he anticipated. Um, and some of the iconography of the superhero myth is present. I mean, like their cell suits kind of almost resemble a superhero suit. Like they have a helmet, which kind of represents like a cowl or mask. They have a symbol on their chest for their faction. That's kind of like the crest of the superhero, the bold colors, the kind of the tights, so to speak. All of that is there, but it's not like your traditional straight on superhero story. And when I've described some of the premise to people, they'll bring up a few things that it reminds them of. I mean, I would say it's closer to the Nova Corps than the Green Lantern Corps, but
Right.
I would say that the guardsmen themselves, is more of a conduit to sort of tell a story of how could you become a superpowered character, because it's a concept that's been around literally for decades. The Galactic Patrol or the Space Cop. Our modern versions of that are the Green Lanterns, the Nova Corps, the Jedi Knights. All of those is a version of that Galactic Patrol. And in my story, that isn't so much the focus, because the couple of things that I feel that separated from Green Lantern is that the guardsmen don't, there's like numerous Green Lanterns that patrol a sector of space. And my story, and it's totally not even Earth based. That's another separate thing, is that they're not as many of them around anymore, and they're slowly dying out. And they also, even with an augmenting suit, they don't fly. They don't have like an energy field per se that transports them, faster than light. So they have to require on ships. And one more, I guess, more major nerd point I'll throw out there, because I've had funny debates with my friends about how superpowers work, is that in the guardsmen, like everything that they're able to do is what we humanoids can do. We run, the suit allows you to run faster, it makes you stronger, but you can't fly. It's like the old Superman concept. You can probably jump a few stories, but in order to get to place, like I said, they have their spaceships, but if they have a mission and they don't want to necessarily land the ship, if there's a dangerous situation, they have this memory armor in the shoulder pad area that allows them to basically glide down to the planet, kind of like Batman's cape. especially
Right.
in the Christopher Nolan and Tim Burton movies. So, with all that being said, that's just some of the fun backstory of the world building. But at the end of the day, it's my take on familiar tropes, including superhero myth, space opera, superhero, like the bombastic superhero opera of like, battles and larger than life characters with very, very strong visual impact, among other things. So,
Right.
and there's the ship.
So yeah, that's ship looks great.
Thank you.
So do we want to go through rewards you have going on?
Sure. We can do that.
Okay, so get the tiers. Okay. So you can get Guardsman is the comic book physical copy tier. You get the Advanced Guardsman, get a physical copy, and you pick the variant. And you got some cool variants going on.
Yeah, you can probably see I have there's an element of callbacks to the era that I created this in, which would be 1976. And I wanted to sort of do a callback to what comics represent to me. So there's actually a Jack Kirby homage and also a John Byrne homage. The Advanced Guardsman tier, like to the left, is that's one done by me, and it tends to be a little more like if Black Alpha had been done in a traditional comic book sense. That cover there, that variant gives an idea of what that could look like,
Right.
as opposed to the more animated style.
Then the Elite Guardsman physical copy with exclusive version variant.
Yeah, that image there was done by a friend of mine, Blake, who works in. I think currently he's been working on DC Online, one of the games, and then he's done concept art for working for some pretty big video game companies. And he did that as a gift for me some time back. And that's also another example of he did it kind of in more your slightly Drew Struzan traditional kind of, movie poster style kind of painted. So
yeah, it's tiny to look at, but I totally get that, feel. Then any Guardsman worth the assault needs a proper uniform. You get t-shirts and caps, and what are those? Are those patches?
Buttons.
Okay, so you get buttons. Then we get the Prime Guardsman. Get the A cover and pick a variant. The Grand Guardsman. Get 2 books, 3 trading cards, and a t-shirt. High Council. Signed copy and the A cover. Let's see. More ones include C tier for details. Yeah, because I see a t-shirt and.
Yep.
Then these original trading cards. And reveal a stretch goal for another trading card. Then we have Science Minister. Get a signed copy of any cover. And yeah, this is just we'll scroll down the actual pledge levels on the right in a second. Century Command, signed cover, hat, and retro lunchbox. Yeah, I see more and more lunchboxes, and that's so cool.
Yeah, well, we talk about, we'll plug your comic again, retro, that we live in such an interesting age in pop culture where retro has sort of become its own kind of boutique medium. You know what I mean? Obviously, Stranger Things is a strong reflection of that. There's a lot of things. I will say my opinions about reboots for another time, but I understand the appeal of a lot of people because there is such a kind of wrapping around your nostalgia as kind of like a warm, cozy blanket. And this project in some ways is also very, is kind of reflective of that. And so Jack Egan, who built this Kickstarter for WTF Comics, we had numerous meetings about kind of really trying to embrace that vibe, to go with things that we all enjoy as comic fans and as collector fans,
Right. No, definitely. And get punished.
Yep. Um, Real quick, I have to give a shout out to Jack Egan once again, because he had a very creative way with labeling some of these rewards and coming up with even the hierarchy of the different, like building it around the mythology of the story, like the guardsman and the science minister, etc. Even this get punished, to me was a great fun way to hopefully call out, attention to all the different rewards.
Right. Right. So you get issues 1 through 3 of Punisher 2099 and pop figure signed, and more in the details of the tier. But
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty cool for like fans that picked up the comic and get them signed and everything. So then we have a poster print. That's awesome.
Blake, who did the other poster I just mentioned, like in the movie poster style, that he also did this
Right.
painting for me as a gift. He's been very gracious with giving his take on the Black Alpha universe. So thank you,
Very
Blake.
nice. Yeah. And by the way, I really like the logo. Simplicity, but has flair too. The
Well,
Black
I
Alpha.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much supposed to be done in the same vein of like the '70s sci-fi, like Star Wars and Star Trek. That's always been the goal, is to really kind of catch the vibe of those logos.
Right. Yeah. Well done.
Thank you.
And tier $500. Hi, Council Director. Get your own custom original sketch by you. Pick any character up. Let's see. Upgrade to full color sketch by going 1 tier higher. Okay. Yeah. And you do great work, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. And then covers. We have cover A.
This cover, by the way, has been kind of an iconic image that I've utilized through the years. It was done by Christian Colbert, who was my original collaborator on issue 1. He's an amazing artist, and in a different reality, if things were slightly different, I probably would have cloned him and utilized him. But he's been working on some of his own projects, and he's working on some other stuff. He did some stuff for Marvel for a while on the Spidey book. But
Okay.
anyway, he did great work on this, and it's become very iconic to me, and that's why I continue to use his work, because I love also the flavor that he brings to the aesthetic.
Yeah, it's a nice piece. And then, let's see, Carrot. This is cover B, and this is your
Yeah,
work.
yeah, the
Yeah,
the more traditional kind of comic book style, sort of a what if or maybe someday kind of thing of what that world would look like through this lens.
yeah. I always love when they have like on the covers, it's all like heads or bodies really small, like just grouped together like this. I just love that style. It's like
Well, it's
very
supposed to be.
movie poster too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say it's supposed to be kind of a movie vibe of the floating heads, and kind of just bring enough symbolic material to sort of give you an idea of what the world that you're about to enter is going to be like.
He looks a little like Val Kilmer here.
I've been asked this, and I don't know if you guys have done this. When you're doing your own create your own book, some people do their fan cast, as they call it.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
um, in a movie universe, if there would have been a movie, we'll say about a decade ago, I think actually Chris Pine would have been a good candidate before he was cast as the new Captain Kirk.
Right. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. And then here's the throwback.
Yep, the Jack
Very
Kirby homage.
Kirby-esque, where
Yep.
where it's plain as day that this was printed back in the '60s.
Yes, exactly. Well, I can't speak for all fandom out there, but Kirby's work is so iconic for a number of reasons, and even if there's been flashy artists that have come about since him, I mean, he changed the visual language of comics, created so many iconic characters and so many iconic worlds and IPs. But I also feel like Jack Kirby's work is, to me, kind of the snuggly go-to for what general comic book art has always felt like since I was a little kid. Besides sort of
Right.
the formulas, the visual formulas that he created, and some of the power behind his work, I still to this day I can remember like going through one of my uncle's old comic book collection, and there was like Commandy, Devil Dinosaur on top of the work that Kirby's more famously known for, and just once again just being really really almost like put at ease, like watching Mister Rogers when I was a kid. Just kind of this warm like calmness comes over you, and that's how I feel when I see any of Kirby's work to this day.
Yeah, he's a true master for sure. And this is the
Oh
other
yeah,
cover. We get to see much
up
bigger.
close. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
Yeah, when I first saw this, I was telling Jack that it's supposed to be Trandon, the hero, Kyrie Ran as our female lead, and then Tolbrak is one of the primary villains off to his upper, I guess, left, and then Argos is more the kind of robotic, metallic-looking guy. That I thought Tolbrak, the guy to his left, reminded me of a character out of the Last Starfighter. That was one of the first things I
Yeah,
kind of thought of when I saw this. So
true. Yes, converging cover. And then we have stretch goals. Let's see, just really quick. Okay, so a lot of them are unlocked. Reach 100 backers for a button upgrade. Reached $3,000 for a free button. And the next one is locked. Reach 200 backers. And I guess we'll find out what that is.
Yeah, we're not quite there, but we did reach our 6,000 goal, so we got the cool, can koozie, whether you enjoy drinking beer or soda,
Yeah, that's cool.
We just announced one today, actually, that if we're able to unlock another stretch goal, that people will get a copy of the poster that was seen on The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, cool. Excellent. And more rewards. Custom pop figure.
Yeah, I love Funko Pops.
Yeah, they're everywhere, aren't they?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's so simple, but they're so expressive in their simplicity.
Well, what I love about Funko Pops, what they represent, especially to anyone who's an artist, a designer, that those are the fun aspects. I think certain people, maybe not as experienced when they're designing the characters, they sometimes overdo it. Like it's overdone because they think if they keep adding more cool stuff on top of it, that'll just be more, I guess, cooler, more awesome. And I feel like you got to sort of boil down like the iconic essence of what your character is. And I think Funko Pops do a pretty good job of showing that, because a lot of times you can see one of their Funko Pops, and even if all the normal details aren't there visually for the character, you automatically know who it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a trend, like with video games. They're trying to one up every other video game out there and putting more and more detail in because they can.
Yeah.
But this is great. This is a retro lunchbox. John Byrne homage. It's definitely
well,
awesome.
And I wanted that image to kind of really evoke when he worked on Star-Lord.
Right.
My first three exposures to him were Iron Fist and Star-Lord, and then his biggest claim to fame at the time, which was the X-Men.
Right. Yeah, I love the Star-Lord book. And it's a shame that they didn't do another one, or like a follow-up at least.
Yeah.
But that was a great piece of work. If anybody doesn't have a copy, go pick up a copy of that.
Well, I always tell people, if you really love the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, where Chris Pratt is Star-Lord, or Peter Quill, check out the original version of that character.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool origin. And then this is add-ons. You can get T-shirt.
Yeah, and obviously that's I've seen a number of those through the years, fun T-shirts, especially Star Wars related, that had the schematics of the Millennium Falcon or the Death Star, TIE Fighter. So once again, I'm just following suit with Black Alpha ship.
Yeah, that's a great blueprint of that, and bigger cases. So that protects the comics.
Yeah.
So that's cool. You can put them on your wall.
Yep.
And all about shipping. Um,
This image underneath the shipping, of course, is more of my
yeah.
super nerdery coming out. I had to create my own alien alphabet for the people of the Caradian star systems, which another book that obviously I keep forgetting to mention this, but this is another book that did have a strong influence. The Micronauts, Marvel Comics
Right.
Micronauts comic
Oh,
that Michael
great
Golden drew.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was actually an issue where I saw them doing this very exact same thing where they did an alphabet for the people in the Micronauts universe. And actually, my female lead, Kyrie Rand, her last name is spelt like the Rand of the lead character in the Micronauts, Arcturus Rand. And even
Uh,
Arctura, Arctura is the name of the star system that my lead character Trandon is from. So I keep forgetting to give a call out to the Micronauts because that I love that comic, and when the same thing when the Toyland came out, they were sort of in tandem, and so that's why I keep saying everything that I loved and was inspired by, I'm just going to do my own versions of that and my creating our own work.
I'm looking up my name. Like I'm just going through the letters, spelling out my name. It's like, oh, that would look cool. Like you could have personalized stamped names, but with their language. That would be cool.
Well, a friend of mine, Mike Atkins, who creates fonts, he actually created a font for this. So in my Photoshop, I could type out your name and send it to you in this
Yeah,
language. So it's pretty
that's
awesome.
cool.
I'll have to do that
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. That would be cool. Um, so that's all of that. I'll just go all the way to the top, and we'll figure out here. Here we go. So WT Comics first graded, bunch of support
Hmm.
to others. So I'm just going to go through this really quick. Everybody knows Kickstarter, and you can just pledge without a reward. You got like a $1 pledge, $6 pledge for digital, and then so on and so forth, and like all the details. I hate there should be like a little more room here to
Yeah.
scroll down the pledge part. Um, but obviously, if you click on any of these pledge levels, you'll get the full details. Whatever is not able to fit on just seeing it, but it looks like you got it set up really good here. I notice like I see a lot of Kickstarters where it says continued, and like there's a whole thing that scrolls open and you're reading
Hmm.
a whole list of things. But it looks like it's mapped out pretty good here.
Yeah,
Um,
like I said, Jack Egan built this Kickstarter. I think he did a phenomenal job on it, so I'm very appreciative of that. And actually, speaking of the tier rewards, we
yeah,
have five days left, and I keep emphasizing we're wanting to keep this momentum going because every pledge helps. Um, but I will give a shout out to anyone watching this. I do really appreciate the support that we've had already with my friends and family and people who are brand new to Black Alpha. And the initial launch of the Kickstarter was funded in just a little over a day. On the images that I shared, I put down like 2 days or 48 hours, but technically it was just a little over a day. And so I really appreciate people coming out of the gate very strong to support this. And anyone in my life, that's close to me knows how important this is. But I just wanted to say that real quick, and that we're still, appreciative of everything we've had thus far, and want to try and see how far we can get here in the next 5 days.
right, yeah. Um, and yeah, so it goes through all the pledge levels. I'm actually using a different browser, so you can't see I
Mm-hmm.
pledged, but I did pledge to this to get my comic.
Well, I really appreciate that,
um,
Peter.
yeah. Oh man, my pleasure. I mean, like you said, you've been sort of working on it for years, and I've been following along. Um, your ups and downs and struggles, and it's like retro. My character is a character I created in my late teens, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I've been an anchor in comics for it will be in September. It will be 30 years, but it's taken
Mm-hmm.
me this long to in part get up the guts to do my own book and put it out there. but it's also a struggle to, work on the book, and like you said, you have a life outside of, just what your passion is. Um, and yeah, so I'm trying to make a living, trying to have a life, trying to, you know, do other things as well as work on my comic. And then, last year happened globally to everyone, all
Yeah.
that jazz. But here we are at last, and I could see us doing a team up down the line.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Well, and I will say this, you said something that I reemphasize to people. Um, if people have had success in certain areas, whatever their goal has been, the career they're trying to forge for themselves, and especially in the entertainment industry, that there's always going to be a whole separate anxiety and fear when you're like, well, you like my version of Spider-Man or the X-Men, but now I'm going to get my own character out there. And I think there is a definite vulnerability to that, because
Yeah,
it's almost like you are very much sharing a more intimate part of yourself as a creator, and all the anxiety that goes with it. Well, like, what if people don't like this? What if it lands on its face? A number of things. And it can definitely be anxietous, and why I understand why at times it takes a while for creators to getting around to doing their own characters and world building and universe, etc.
yeah. But it is happening a lot more nowadays, and not only
Mm-hmm.
because of computers and internet and all that jazz, like, which is way different than when I started, in the comic industry. Um, but it's just like, because there are so many other creators there that, like, the ones that have done it are helping those that want to do it, and so there's more and more communities out there of people all just super excited about doing their own stories and their own books, and and it's not all superheroes. It's some of it's out and out sci-fi, some of it's fantasy, some of it's just real life drama. You know,
Mm-hmm.
much like they all say, like in Japan, like there's a comic for everything. Well, that's happening here in America too. It's like it's a very good time
Yeah.
to just if you want to make something, then just make it and put it out there, and just
Well,
because
that's what they sort of say. That's the new breaking in, right? Is to just do it and get your work out there to an audience.
yeah. So if there's we covered everything. If there's anything you want to hint at, or just go over one last time, or we'll just close this out. The
I guess I'll
Kickstarter
just
page.
reemphasize, yeah, I'll just reemphasize that I'm glad we met our goal in such a short amount of time, and we've actually a little over 200% of that now, and there's still 5 days to continue to pledge. I'll just ask people, whatever they can to support, shares the pledge or whatever. I always appreciate it, and any more that we're able to raise always goes in back into the IP, right? I mean, we're we're at this point it looks like we'll probably have to do what a lot of creators do, where they fund one issue at a time, because the end goal, at least initially for Black Alpha, is to get a miniseries completed. We have interest from some pretty big indie publishers, but most of them have had the policy for quite some time that they want to see basically your book be done before they even consider, like, signing to publish it, or to solicit it, especially. So that's our goal within this next year. Hopefully, we can get the miniseries wrapped up. I'm hoping in the next year or so, and then do an eventual trade paperback. And I know a couple of people have asked me, would it be opposed to doing like an ongoing book? I'm never opposed to almost anything, honestly, in that regard. But um, because it is such a labor intensive process, that doing a miniseries, getting those 4 issues all wrapped up, will be a huge milestone for me. And the structure of the story that I'm trying to build, honestly, I view, like, if you're doing a miniseries, and that can be the season of your TV show or a film, that's a book or a film, that that if the first miniseries is a success, then maybe we'll do a second one that will be treated like the middle film in a trilogy. But one thing at a
Right.
time. That's been my motto for quite some time. One thing at a time. And I know a couple of people have asked, with thanks to the help of WTF, I've really kind of narrowed my focus and brought it back to the original base of storytelling, which is comic books, since I've loved comic books my whole life, and really treated the medium with the respect that it deserves. Because, I still talk to Hollywood people on the side, I don't share that stuff publicly anymore, but I've sort of learned to kind of go back to, the comic or the movie stuff can come and go, and there's so many things that fall apart. Even if something gets an announcement in Deadline Hollywood, there's so many steps it has to go through before you see a completed project. Comics are not a ton easier to make, but they're definitely easier than most film and TV projects. And so I'm honoring what I've said for some time. I appreciate the people who've stuck around all these years and following, including you, Peter. That's very much appreciated. And I feel
Thanks.
like I owe it to them, everyone out there but myself, to finally get this story to a certain level that they're actually invested in the narrative and the story itself rather than always being more invested in a concept, which is kind of what I was selling this entire time.
Yeah.
So it'll be
Um,
fun to actually people get into the story. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So close that out, get back here. Um, what do I want to say? Oh, in regards to, like you were saying, like with Hollywood and movies not happening and whatnot, like comic books being optioned, not everybody knows, but a lot more people do than they used to. But Jimmy Palmiotti is my brother. Amanda
mhm.
Connor is my sister-in-law. Um, he had his character, him and Joe Quesada, created a character called Ash. Well, actually, I named the character.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that book.
yeah, and it's a fantastic book when the two of them were working on it. Um, and that was option to be made into a movie, even before like the first Incredibles movie. Like it was
Hmm.
it was set to be the first CGI superhero movie.
Hmm.
Um, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen, but it was optioned for, I could swear, like it seemed like 10 years.
Hmm.
They re-optioned. I got a big TV out of it. I got something, but
That's awesome.
but it's sad because it could have been something really truly fantastic and ahead of its time. But you know, more properties, don't happen than anything else. But it's not a bad thing. Like I know a lot of people who are against like those people out there that create comics just for the sole purpose of being made into a movie and whatnot. But that's personal choice or whatever. I'm all about the comics first. It seems like you are too, and you want to make a great book, and that's it wouldn't be a good movie if it wasn't based on a great source material. Um,
Yeah. Well, and I will say this, that what you mentioned, I definitely know that that's been out there, and like you said, that's a personal individual choice. I think what I've tried to do a little apart from that is that, because I've mentioned a number of times now, I grew up loving the cartoons and the toys, and I mean, like the '80s were a perfect age for like the Ninja Turtles and He-Man and GI Joe, where the kids could enjoy time, synergistic connection, and I create what I've enjoyed my whole life. I mean, I just didn't want like to watch the Star Trek TV show. I used to pick up the old Gold Key comic books of Star Trek,
right.
and then of course the model ships of the from the show of the Enterprise and a Klingon battle cruiser, but also the Mego action figures, just like all my Marvel and DC. So I created kind of having the same philosophy at the time, that if I can create something with an eye towards you know franchisability, that from a business sense, I kind of, and foolishly or not, thought that that would hopefully improve the potential for success. And sometimes you have to learn things firsthand, and at times the hard way. That um, that like you said with Ash, I mean, just because it gets optioned once, it can be re-optioned. That's what's happened to me a few times. And actually, I've had other characters out in the public eye that have had interest from the entertainment industry and actors and filmmakers and Hollywood a number of times, but nothing has clicked yet. And so I've learned to really kind of swing my thinking around to, if that doesn't happen, you have to accept it. You have to kind of roll with it. And if it
Yeah.
does, it's a wonderful surprise that you can hopefully enjoy. But the comic the comic, like you said, that's the foundation and the basis. And like you said, if you don't have a good story or a good foundation, I mean, the things that follow it, chances are they may not either. And so I'm just so excited, like I've said in the Kickstarter video, to see something that has literally been around longer than Star Wars become a reality to the people that have seemed to enjoy and are intrigued by it. And especially for me as the creator, that the emotional investment is going to be a little different, just because it has been such a big part of my life for so many decades. And
Right.
and I've also appreciated people's very kind and complimentary comments of that. They said, I've never quite known a lot of people like yourself that have hung in there on their dreams, even with some of the disappointments, you know, that you haven't given up on something you've wanted to do most of your life. Because a number of people, when they're comfortable to share, will say, well, I used to doodle, or I used to draw, I used to play with my toys and make up adventure stories, but either I got bored of it or a number of things happened and I forgot about it. I put it on the shelf, and
Yeah.
I feel grateful that even though at times it's not been easy, I feel grateful that that never happened to me. And a lot of our brethren in the comic community kind of feel the same way, especially like you said, in this original character creator own age, that it is. I'm a big cheerleader and proponent of the indie comics movement, just because it is such an exciting new kind of territory for people to explore. Like you said, we have a conduit now for people to get their own stories and material out there directly through the internet, and I will continue to cheerlead that for the rest of my life. That we need creative expression in a number of ways, and for comic creators, I think that's one of the best ones, is to bring new stories into the world instead of always
Right.
recycling the household brands that everyone is tends to be familiar with. And when I say that, I'm always careful to say, I love those things too. I mean, I love everything I've grown up with. I always will, but we always have to have a space for fresh voices too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm actually a bit shocked I was able to share the campaign. Um, Two things. Is there a WTF website? Because I didn't click over and see. Um,
Yes, there is.
if okay, so people interested in the company itself can go track them down and check them out. Um, and I also did not play the video, and I recommend to everybody watch this video because it's one of the best comic book videos out there.
Well, I appreciate that. And I told Jack the other day, I thought he put together an amazing video for the campaign, just the style and every fun thing that he did with it. So I was very happy with how that all came out. So, yeah, once again, great job, Jack.
Yeah. So yeah, so people share, pledge, tell your friends. 5 days left. That will go in a heartbeat. Um, and then you'll be diving into fulfillment and all that.
Well, and I'll reiterate and mention
Me,
this again, Peter. I was
yeah,
so excited to come on your show for a number of reasons. Like I said, I've been also keeping track of what you've been up to and everything. And I sort of love this
nice,
sort of symbolic bookend of when you first interviewed me, and I was sort of just getting Black Alpha out in the public eye back then. And it's
right,
taken some time, but I love the fact that now here we are talking about it with that space in between, and we're talking about it again. And now something is finally actually becoming a reality and moving forward. So that definitely gives me a thrill, too, just to be able to talk to you about it. Because, like I said, you were one of the first podcast interview I ever did
wow, great,
years ago.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, that was I did that show via uh, horse talk show,
Hmm.
and unfortunately they took down all past podcasts, and I didn't have them on my computer, so
Oh,
I don't
that's a
have
bummer.
any of yeah, I don't have any of those interviews, um, because it was through that site, then linked to iTunes and other stuff. Um, but yeah, it's like I went there one day and I was like, where's all my podcasts? It's like
Hmm.
gone. Just that's the chance you take on the internet.
Yeah.
Um, so it was my fault. I didn't have the memory at the time to put it all on my computer. but but we have the memories, and
Exactly.
yeah. Um, and I'm so glad you got this, and it's coming together for you, and you got, you know, a good fan base going, and people that pledge to your product and dream essentially.
Hmm.
Um, and I definitely look forward to getting the comic and reading the actual print version.
Yeah. Well, you and I, like you said, considering the generation we come from, there's never going to be, just being able to hold it and smell it, and there's just such a magic about having, the physical comic in your hands.
Yeah, it's like I used to go to the comic store, run home, and just jump on my bed and lay down and open up the comics and read them that way, And not much
Yeah.
has changed, you know.
Well, yeah, exactly. I was going to say when it comes to childhood memories, besides when we'd go visit my grandma's house, my mom's mother, my two uncles, Leonard and Larry, my grandma would pull out their comics from the attic. So it's that classic grandma's attic story. And I remember I
Right.
was exposed to so many characters because of them, like, even Conan and John Carter of Mars and Doc Savage, some of the pulp characters, but also, like I said, Commandy and, the
Uh,
Warlord, Mike Grell's The Warlord. So many amazing comic book stories. And so I have a very fond memory of that particular chapter, being able to flip through my uncle's comic books. And then even when I started my mom would buy some for me. I remember during summer break from school, going to the local park and, laying on the picnic table and having a can of Mountain Dew and a
mhm.
stack of 4 or 5 comics and just reading those and flipping those, out in the summer air. And like you said, it's just, and not much has changed. I'm
Yeah,
glad that I, like many people, have embraced the comic book medium for, just the awesomeness that it is and how that's never left me.
yeah, yeah. No, definitely. So I was working for most of the
Hello. Hello.
stream today.
Yeah, we must be having some technical issues because I can't hear you anymore. See if I can click back into the studio here. Maybe.
No. All right. uh, there we go.
Your vocal disappeared.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, and that's my
No
internet,
problem.
and it just gives out every once in a while. What was I even saying? I forget now. Yeah, just
You said you were working the
the
whole time while we were talking.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so I was working for most of the stream, but I have like 4 cats, but I have one of them just to the right of me, and
Hmm.
she's been sleeping this whole time, but decided to wake up, and I had a bottle of ink open, so I decided to close up my
Yeah.
ink and just until you know the end of the stream and give her a little attention. She wants to say hi.
What's your
But
cat's name?
I call her Clea. Her full name is Cleopatra. And
Cleo, cool. Well, hi, Cleo.
she's a snow Bengal. She's
Cool.
really pretty. Yeah. So yeah. Before my internet gives away again, is there any places on the internet you want people to go to see you or your work?
Well, WTF Comics, we mentioned them earlier, so you can pretty much, just type them out. They should be easy to find, especially with the WTF part. It's in, in capital letters. WTF Comics. I tend to probably do most of the majority of my promotion on my Tom Rasch Facebook page. So that's TOMRASCH. And usually I share any status of what I'm doing, what's going on, nerding out with people on my Facebook page. And then there is a Black Alpha Twitter, and BLACKALPHA Twitter. There's a Tom Rasch Instagram, but the majority of the stuff that I do to promote what I do is on my personal Facebook page. And there's a Black Alpha page you can find on Facebook.
Right.
So
excellent. So yeah, once again, well, the link is in the chat, but it's also below the video. If you're watching this later, go click on it. Check out the campaign. Even if you're not interested, please give it a share.
Yes, thank you.
Us independent creatives put in a lot of hard work on what we do, and we don't have the big companies backing us up. So every little bit helps.
For sure.
And yeah, it's a great looking project and product. And yeah, I hope it doubles inside before
I appreciate that, Peter.
End of the campaign. My pleasure, man. My pleasure. And thank you so much for coming on. And this has been great to talk to you again.
Yeah, right back at you.
So yeah, like I mentioned early, I'm going to be on other people's shows this weekend. Dori Jones has been in the chat. I'll be on her show tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And she's going to do a little spotlight on me and then Eric Faries. And we're going to be talking about comics and making comics and all that jazz. Then I'll be back here Monday streaming probably a solo show before I have on more guests. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy your Friday.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you,
Enjoy
Peter.
your weekend. Tom, this has been great. So
yeah, a pleasure.